Hello everyone, Charles Watts here. Welcome back to Inside Arsenal. It is Saturday. I hope the weekend has started well wherever you're watching or listening to this around the world. A quiet weekend, of course, in terms of actual football action for Arsenal anyway. The rest of the FA Cup's going on. But after that defeat against Manchester United in the third round, it is a weekend off for Arsenal, which is why they are out training in Dubai. At the moment, the FA Cup got underway last night. Man United sneaking through against Leicester. There's an advert for why VAR needs to be in place, I suppose. For all the people like me who, to be fair, would probably want it scrapped if you could. When you see goals like that or decisions like that from the officials without the help of VAR, I mean, how that's not offside. He's staring right down the line of it. There's about 5 United players offside, including, of course, Maguire, who scores the winner. It's absolutely catastrophic decision from the officials. I don't understand how the linesman hasn't seen that. But anyway, yes, there is plenty of football to watch today if you want to watch your football. And the Arsenal women are in action this weekend, of course, as well tomorrow. So there is plenty to keep you entertained over the next 24 hours or so. Right, in today's show, we're going to talk about Gabriel Martinelli's injury. 4 weeks. It's looking like at least 4 weeks he's going to be sidelined for. David Ornstein breaking that story late yesterday. So we're going to talk about that. And then we've got lots of questions and comments from you guys as well. And we'll talk about the women. Brilliant Champions League draw against Real Madrid, setting up a mouthwatering tie for them in the quarterfinals as well. So plenty to get stuck into. But we've got to start on here. So if you watch on YouTube, you can see David's tweet revealing the news last night. Gabriel Martinelli faces more than a month on the sidelines with a hamstring injury suffered in the defeat at Newcastle. Early indications suggest 23-year-old set to miss Premier League games against Leicester, West Ham, Notts Forest, potentially United, Chelsea, and the Champions League last 16 ties. Is there anything seriously more predictable than that? Something like this happening as soon as the window shut and Arsenal decided not to sign anyone, not to add to their attacking options, despite how short they are. You knew someone was going to get injured straight away. It's just the way I said it. It's the way football works. It's the way fate works. It's the way Arsenal's season's gone when it comes to injury. Something like this was always going to happen. And if you don't protect yourselves, if you don't bring in players, if you don't protect the players that are already there, and you end up having to run players into the ground because you've got no other option of rotating them, something like this was always bound to happen. And it has. And it's just so incredibly frustrating. It really is. I don't know really what else to say about it. My thoughts as a fan, first of all, is just how frustrating it is, because it was just always going to happen. And if we knew it and we've spoken about it, surely the club knew it, and surely they spoke about it behind the scenes. And it's just baffling how they didn't protect themselves from something like this happen. You can't ask as much as they are currently asking of the attacking players for that to go on for weeks and, well, potentially months until the end of the season, or certainly until Bukayo Saka comes back fit. These players are going to break down because of the sheer amount of minutes they are having to play, because of the complete and utter lack of options. It was just always going to happen. And it's a real blow for Martinelli. It's a real blow for Arsenal, no doubt about it. You know, they're very, very light. Now, you've basically got 4 attackers, and 2 of those are Raheem Sterling and a 17-year-old kid. And look, that 17-year-old kid is a special talent, and he's done brilliant things this season. But to be relying on a 17-year-old, which we're basically going to have to do now for, well, at least a month, in a crucial stage of the season, when you're trying to chase down Liverpool in the Premier League, when you're trying to get yourselves through to the real deep stages of the Champions League, and you're relying on a 17-year-old who you're basically not really going to be able to rotate, you know, that's just not acceptable. It's just not good enough. And, you know, they've only got themselves to blame for this situation. And I hope they know that. I'm sure they know that. I mean, they're certainly going to face a lot of questions when he comes back, when the squad come back from Dubai, and that press conference before the Leicester game, you know, because it's just mad that they didn't sign anyone in January. It really, really is. And I've seen a lot of people replying in comments, because I've said this a bit recently. A lot of people say, you know, we don't just want a body. That's what we got with Raheem Sterling. And I get that, but I do think Arsenal are at the stage where there were players out. You cannot tell me there weren't players out there who could have improved the squad in January. You know, even on a short-term basis. Look at Kolo Muani, who was someone I called for before the window started. I thought that was a really attractive option. And look, maybe it was something they explored. I don't know. And maybe it was something, he was so far down the line with Juventus. He only wanted Juventus. So that was going to be impossible to do. But you looked at Muani and just think there's a talented young player there who's available. Everyone knew he was available. Juventus went out and got him. And look at him, he scored, I think, 5 goals in his first 3 games. Now, while he's at Juventus, there were options out there. There's surely some experienced options who could have come in and lessen load, because that's, when we talk about not wanting the body, lessening the load is so important, because otherwise these players are going to get injured because they're having to play so much. You have to be able to share those minutes out. And if you have to, the fact that Kai Havertz on Wednesday night, when the game was absolutely done and dusted, dead, with half an hour to go, and yet Havertz stayed on for the final half an hour and injury time, because there was just no other option of what you're going to do to bring someone on. And just, and that was a case of where a body would have been fine because the game was over. So you just bring someone on and you let Kai Havertz put his feet up for the final half an hour. But you couldn't do that. You can't do that. And that's the issue here. And, these are really key games that Martinelli's going to miss. You've got the Champions League coming out. I mean, every game's important. If Arsenal seriously want to hunt down Liverpool, and I know it's very, very unlikely, but the message from Arsenal is that they do. That's what the players say. It's what Mikel Arteta says. If they really do want to hunt down Liverpool in the Premier League and put as much pressure on them as they possibly can, you're going to be doing it with 3 forwards, basically, and Raheem Sterling. And I'm saying that it's not a dig at Raheem Sterling, but, we've seen now the sample size is big. It does not look like Raheem Sterling is going to be able to offer anything to this Arsenal team over the final months. I hope I'm wrong. I hope this might spark him into life, and suddenly we'll see a completely different Raheem Sterling from now until the end of the season than we have done before. But from what we've seen, the evidence we've seen in front of us week after week, whenever he comes on and gets minutes, he is not going to help this Arsenal team between now and the end of the season. He's just not going to affect it, other than be that kind of body that we talked about, who could bring on and just stop one of the players having to play 90 minutes while Martinelli's injured. So there's so much pressure now on Trossard, Havertz and Ranieri to deliver. And, for a top club, and Arsenal are a top club, and they've got top ambitions. No matter what people say, they have got top ambitions. They've got a manager who demands that the club try and compete at the very, very top. To leave themselves this exposed, to leave the squad and their players this exposed to injury, it's just a hammer blow. It really is a hammer blow for Arsenal. And fingers crossed Martinelli can come back quicker than maybe expected, and he could maybe arrive before the Champions League knockout games. We'll have to wait and see. But it's a real hammer blow. It's like classic football. It's classic this season for Arsenal. He had the kind of high yesterday of seeing Ben White return to full training. And it just lifted everyone a little bit. And it's like, we've missed him. It's going to be great that he's back. He's back available, and he's going to give us another option. And you can rotate defensively. And then within 24 hours, you've gone from that good feeling of Ben White coming back to the real low of being without Gabriel Martinelli and losing yet another attacker. It's just the highs and lows of this season, and it's in keeping with how the season has gone for Arsenal. But in this case, this isn't to do with bad luck. In my view, this is to do with really, really poor planning and not activating your recruitment process like you should have done, and leaving yourselves short and exposed. And something like this was always going to happen, in my view. A couple of you got in touch to talk about it. Aaron says, we all knew a single injury in the attacking lineup will make the rest of the season difficult. On the bright side, during Martinelli's absence, we have a maximum 4 to 5 games. That's Premier League games. There's the Champions League as well. So technically it's 7, really, if the timescale is correct. You say the only difficult fixture will be the game against Nottingham. Again, every game's difficult in the Premier League. So I think to say the only difficult fixture is Nottingham, I don't see that at all. Every game's difficult. And when you've got very, very few attacking options, it's going to be difficult to break any team down in the Premier League. He said, what we should worry about is the rest of the players up front. Havertz, Trossard, Sterling, Ranieri will have much time, won't have much time to take in a rest now. Additional injuries might happen to them, as they will not be getting proper management and rotation. I don't know whether Mikel will do that at the end, do that speech at the end of the season at the Emirates like in previous years. But if there is one, I hope the board also takes some time to talk to the fans as well. The board has a lot of explaining to do about poor planning, management, and the transfer window. That's not going to happen. There is absolutely no chance Josh Kroenke or Stan Kroenke come out onto the pitch at the end of their final game of the season and do a speech to the crowd. It's not going to happen. The only time they'll really probably do it, any sort of media, normally anyway, is during the preseason tour in America, when one of them will give a sit-down interview to a few of the journalists who are there. Oh, Erling Collins says, I wonder if Max Dowman will make the bench now that Nelly is injured. I guess it depends on the regulations, like Arteta mentioned. I hope he does. I don't think he can. I think, like you said, the regulations there, I do think prevent that, as I said before, because he started the season in the under 15 category at Arsenal. And then that's when everything was sort of submitted. That stops him being able to play this season. If he was an under 16, he would be able to. If he was registered as under 16, he would. But because he's under 15, he can't. So I don't think there's anything that can change that now until the end of the season. So I don't think Dowman can feature. And if we're relying on a 15-year-old, then I think that sort of says an awful lot as well about the poor planning when it comes to Arsenal's attack. Moving on to a couple of other bits of news. Obviously, the Champions League draw for the women took place yesterday. Real Madrid in the quarterfinals. Arsenal going to Spain first for the first leg on March the 18th, and then back at the Emirates for the second leg on March the 26th. So that'll be a fantastic night, absolutely superb night at the Emirates. You imagine that will 100% be a sellout as well. So that'll be a really good game. The women are in action this weekend in cup action, FA Cup 5th round, playing London City Lionesses tomorrow at Meadow Park. So if you want to get down there, you can. I think the game's being streamed as well, so you'll be able to watch that. Elsewhere, the under-21s played last night, lost 1-0. Tough gig for them at the moment because so many of their players are out in Dubai with the squad. So it was a very, very sort of young team and a much changed team. Lost 1-0 goal early in the second half for them. I saw the assistant coach was talking afterwards about the fact so many of the players were away with Dubai, and he was saying how in previous years when those players have gone with the squad, they've come back completely different players because of the experience they've had over there and working in and around the first team so much and spending so much time with them. So hopefully that will be really beneficial to all of them. And who knows, Arsenal might have to call upon some of those now. When you look at the situations Arsenal have got, Charles Sigo Jr., who has made his debut in the first team in that League Cup game last season, he might well have to come into the reckoning for the first team between now and the end of the season. They'll certainly be placed on a bench, you would think, for some of these players. Nathan Butler, Deji as well. Those sort of players, they might well have to be called upon. We talk about sort of sharing minutes and taking the burden off the sort of senior guys. I'm sure some of those players will now be expecting there's a good chance they might get some minutes between now and the end of the season in the Premier League, even if it is the last sort of 15 minutes when hopefully Arsenal have won a game, and then you can just take players off early and bring on some of the youngsters. So it could be a big few months for a couple of those younger players. All right, moving on to some questions, comments before we wrap this one up. Mr. Healy says, Charles, if you take your Arsenal cap off, I honestly don't know why Saliba would sign a new contract, considering the lack of spending in the last 3 windows. We always think the fans have frustration, but imagine the players as well. They definitely will be angry. I'm honestly scared history is going to start repeating itself, and Saliba will be the first domino of player leaving. This is obviously in response to the Real Madrid Saliba stuff that we were talking about yesterday, and the reports coming out of France that Madrid will prioritise signing William Saliba this summer. I mean, it is a fear. Yeah, of course it is. I mean, at some stage, Saliba is going to leave Arsenal. I think that's absolutely crystal clear. He's not an academy boy. He's not come through. Yes, he was an Arsenal fan when he was a youngster, but there's no sort of emotional tie to the club, and it will happen. I'm sure it will. Just hopefully it's not going to happen this summer or in the next couple of years. Hopefully he does sign his new contract. Will he be upset? I don't know. I don't know. I still think William Saliba loves life at Arsenal. I don't think he's ready to walk away yet. Famous last words. But I'm sure the players will be a bit frustrated at the lack of signings. They'll be looking around. I'm sure the attacking players will be like, how have we not been given any help? Jatty says, hi, Charles. If we could, the only way we could afford Isak in the summer is to sell Saliba to Madrid, would you do it? God, that's a question, isn't it? Would I do it? I wouldn't do it. I just think look, I don't think Alexander Isak to Arsenal is going to be possible. I can't see it. It's too much money, what they're going to want. He's not in a position contractually which will allow clubs to really take advantage of that situation yet. Maybe a year down the line when he gets down to his final 2 years at Newcastle, then that would give them a decision to make. But providing they get into Europe, which I think is a pretty nailed on prospect, I think that he will just stay at Newcastle. I can't see a way a club's going to be able to afford him in the summer. And I think if you're selling Saliba to bring Isak in, I think that sends the wrong message as well, because you're losing arguably the best young defender in the world to sign one of the best strikers in the world. Yes, you get that striker, but you've lost the best young defender in the world. I just don't think that sends the right message out. So no, I wouldn't do it. I'd keep Saliba. If that was the only way they could do it, then I'd keep Saliba and I'd look at another striker, which I think Arsenal are going to have to do anyway. And Jalek said, why would Saliba stay at a team that is going nowhere? I don't get this. I know everyone's upset after a bad defeat, but a team that is going nowhere, it's just rubbish. You know, you're talking about a team that's sitting second in the Premier League that's just gone through third in the Champions League. It's not going nowhere. Pretty much every other team in European football would kill to be Arsenal right now. So don't talk rubbish, to be fair. The team is not going nowhere. The club is not going nowhere. The club is at the best position it's been for a long, long time. Have they won anything yet? No. Is that frustrating? Yes. Have they made mistakes? Yes. But this club is not going nowhere. So I don't agree with that. I just think it's so much overreaction to a defeat. It was an awful defeat. It was horrible. It made me feel dreadful. But you can't sit here and say the club is going nowhere. It's just not true. Absolutely not true. Cross the Shoot says, you are totally wrong, Charles, about big players letting their contracts run down. City got Haaland to sign a 9-year deal. Chelsea, Cole Palmer, 9-year deal. Even Spurs tied down Harry Kane. Arsenal are weak in every area, buying and selling. They simply prey, and the clubs around them are predators. We should not even be publicising the Saliba link. We should squash them, increase the pressure in the reverse direction, and make Madrid dry out for 2 or 3 years because they will just move on to another target and go away. But instead, we entertain this nonsense, which is why we're not a serious club at the very top level. I don't know who is entertaining this nonsense. I can't imagine the club are entertaining this nonsense about Saliba and Real Madrid. Even if Real Madrid come knocking, I don't think they would entertain it. You're right to point out the Haaland one. Now, this is in response to what I was saying yesterday, how we're seeing more and more young top players now sort of allowing their contracts to run down and making a very late decisions on their future. I still think I'm right in that. You're right to point out those sort of differences. But look, Haaland has signed a 9-year contract on 800 grand a week minimum. You know, that potentially with add-ons that take it close to £1 million a week. It's just not something Arsenal can do. So it's the only way you're going to be able to sign, you know, these sort of world-beating players that, you know, the top bracket players like Haaland, and keep him at your club for long term is to commit to a contract like that. That's just something Arsenal cannot do. They can't pay that sort of money. And that's not about them not being a serious club. That's just they cannot pay that sort of money. You can't tie yourselves in. You know, what if Haaland gets injured? What if he breaks his leg? You know, what if he has to retire in a year's time and they're tied down to a contract on 800 grand a year for 9 years? So I don't think that's a way for a club to operate anyway. But you are right. Obviously, there are a few exceptions to the rule that I mentioned yesterday. John Z says, hi, Charles. Really enjoyed the breakdown of what the boys will be doing in Dubai. I truly hope they'll get the rest and break they desperately need. But any idea why it's only 4 days? Seems like a short break. 2 days at Colney before Leicester should be enough. No, it's not 4 days. It's 6 days. They went yesterday, which was Thursday, and they come back on Wednesday. So maybe it's 4 full days. But, you know, they will be there for 6 days in total before coming back. I think it's just the only time they can get, really. I think they arrive back on Wednesday, so their first training session before Leicester will be on Thursday. They can't really leave it any later than that because they'll be travelling to Leicester on Friday and staying at the hotel. So they had to come back by Wednesday, really, to leave themselves 1 full day's training at London Colney. Nick says, surely we should be thinking on moving on Tomiyasu at this point. People love pointing out Partey's injury record, but surely Tommy's is even worse. Arteta clearly has his favourites, and it wouldn't surprise me if the Japanese was up for yet another contract renewal. What a waste. That's not happening. The fact that Arsenal gave, when they did renew his contract, they gave him such a short contract. You know, they kind of protected themselves from that. They were hoping that he was going to stay fit, but I think they made sure they only gave him a short-term renewal because of the fears they had over the contract. Look, I think the thing is, though, how do you move on from Tomiyasu? Because who signs him after a season where he's literally not played a minute, or he's played 20 minutes or whatever it is he's played this season? So it's very easy to say, oh, sell him. But, you know, what club's going to buy him after a season where he's just not featured at all? And I don't know what's going on with Tomiyasu, to be honest, at the moment. I don't know what exactly the injury is. Arsenal have sort of shrouded it in mystery a little bit in terms of what's going on with Tommy. He's obviously not in Dubai. A lot of the injured players are in Dubai. Even Martinelli's over in Dubai. But Tommy's not. And yeah, that is a worry in terms of what it means for him, seeing him again this season. But yeah, I'm sure that ideally the club would probably, yes, they would want to move on from Tomiyasu at the moment, because what's the point in paying a player when you're not playing him? But it's very hard to do that until the end of his contract because no one's really going to sign him at this stage, are they? And Dwayne says, really hoping we land Alabe as sporting director. His vast experience, his so many roles in different regions of the world. He's so well connected. He has a reputation as a shrewd operator. I also like the fact that he actually once signed Arteta for L'Oreal. I think the power dynamic there between him and Mikel would be more balanced, where Edu might not have had the stature to challenge Arteta is effectively. Yeah, I think out of all the candidates, I think Alabe is probably my favourite, my choice at the moment, just because I think he has done some very good things at Real, and he is so well respected across European football. He's been doing it for so long. He's got so many contacts in the game. Has done it in different countries as well, and knows Mikel. And I, like you, I think that could be a good partnership. So I think he's probably my first choice, I have to say. And yeah, as I was talking about yesterday, hopefully that is a process that is completed very, very soon, because I think it is vitally important that it is. And that's it. Thank you for watching today, everyone, and for listening. Appreciate it as always. I'll be back in the morning where I'm going to look more at Arsenal's stay in Dubai and go through some of the priorities I think Mikel will be working on while over in Dubai before the team do come back. So keep your eyes peeled for that one. Until then, enjoy the start of your weekend. I'll speak to you very, very soon. Bye-bye.